Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. And today's Thriver TV episode is the first in a series called Clearing Susceptibility to Narcissists. And my intention with this series is to give you tools and understandings and tips and knowledge and the wisdom in order to identify and clear out the reasons why you're still stuck with a narcissist, or you might be continually attracting them and getting enmeshed with them. So today's episode starts off with talking about people pleasing. And this is so important because people pleasing is congratulated by society in so many ways. We were brought up to believe that it's really important to be nice to people. It's important to give people what they want, if necessary, to work in with people, to really support people. And we really weren't taught the right boundary function with this. And the paradigm of being nice to people means that they're going to be nice to us back and they're going to treat us how we treat them is a false paradigm. It's not true, because the truth of the matter is people are not treating us in relation to how we treat them. They are treating us in relation to how we treat ourselves. So in my world, in my previous life, before I did my up-leveling and my healing from narcissistic abuse, I was an incredible people pleaser. I hated confrontation. I didn't want to stand up. I didn't want to confront and have the difficult conversations. And like all of us, how that led me to feel was really drained, very anxious. I'd be saying yes when I really wanted to say no. I would feel like I was walking on broken glass, trying to keep the peace with people. And I would hand over many parts of myself and my energy and my resources and my time and even my money and myself and all sorts of things, even when the warning signs were going off, even when I felt really anxious and squirmy inside, I would still do it because I was actually terrified of putting my best foot forward and saying no to people. And I know that there are lots of people in this community that feel exactly the same way, because this is one of the things that can hook us into and keep us stuck in narcissistic abuse in really nasty ways. So let's identify really where this started. And where this started was when we were little people and we were being parented by bigger people, authority figures. And these bigger people in our life were also parented in often very unconscious ways. And an unconscious role of parenting or a model of parenting is when a parent is not working age appropriately with a child. So, for example, as a 2 or a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old, if we were emotional or distraught or upset or having a moment or even having a tantrum or an insecurity, that is an age-appropriate part of development. But if a parent is looking at that as an adult and saying, well, I want you to go from 0 to 100 and from a 2-year-old into an adult overnight, that means that behavior is inappropriate. It's not okay for you to have your emotions. It's not okay for you to be upset or angry. Go to your room and come out when you've stopped the behavior. So then what happened as a child was we had no way we didn't have the sophistication at that point to be able to self-soothe and to be able to process and partner our emotions through to resolution. And we didn't have a parent modeling that for us, helping us with that or teaching us how to do that, because they were doing that. So we were sent to our room with only one option, which was to bury the emotion, bury that part of self, and come out of that room being what that other person wanted you to be, that authority figure, because otherwise you were at threat of losing love, approval, or security. So this is where we learnt from a very, very early age that our own emotional orientations and feelings and rights were under threat. It wasn't okay to have them, and that to survive we had to not have them and simply go along with the versions of ourselves that other people wanted us to be. And this is a huge, huge hook for narcissistic abuse, because narcissists will make a beeline to someone who is not self-partnered and who is people-pleasing. So in other words, the codependent person that is not as yet a solid source of love, approval and security to themselves, and they're trying to source it from outside of themselves. So this is a person that is going to hand over resources, time, energy. This is a person that's going to say yes to things even when they feel squirmy or it doesn't feel right. And that's how we showed up in our narcissistic relationships, because there was those young, wounded inner parts of us that were more fearful of standing up than the fearful triggers going off inside us, telling us we needed to assert ourselves. So at the beginning of our relationships, we were handing power over unconsciously, and we really had the beliefs that if I just keep this person happy, well then I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be in the safest position I can be in. And we find out with narcissists that is anything but the truth. So as the relationship progressed, most definitely we weren't just saying yes and handing power over. We were getting our triggers hit with full force. We were very angry. We felt very violated. We were trying to fight back. But as we were doing that, we were still showing up as wounded children. We were still really unconsciously, we were still trying to get the narcissist to agree with us. And really unconsciously what that was is we were still trying to please the parent. So we were assigning the narcissist unconsciously as the original parent. We were still trying to win their approval. We were trying to argue back with them. We were trying to justify. We were trying to excuse. We were trying to explain. We were trying to lecture. We were trying to prescribe. We were trying to get the narcissist to believe our version of self. And as codependents, we hadn't developed yet to the point to realize that boundaries are never dependent on another person getting them. They're actually only ever dependent on us getting the boundary. So in other words, when we are self-partnered and we've grown ourselves up enough to be a self-honoring adult in our body, rather than coming from a wounded child container, we know our rights, we know our truth. And if somebody doesn't honor us in that truth, we self-honor and we walk away. And then we're only creating and generating relationships that honor that truth as well. But at that point, we didn't realize it. Also too, we were carrying a lot of guilt and shame from our childhoods, because when we were told that and taught that our emotions were not acceptable, what that deeply meant and felt to us was, I'm not acceptable. Your emotions, energy, emotion are the expression and the truth of yourself. That's yourself. That's your real self. And if that was desecrated, or we felt that it was desecrated, well then we really believed that our inner being was soiled and not acceptable, even bad, dysfunctional, defective. And this is the very root of guilt and shame. That really deep, icky, black feeling that we can have. And when we haven't as yet been able to purge and release and up-level those trapped states that are in our subconscious, in our body, we're very easily guilted out of our rights. So the narcissist could easily say something like, you're being really selfish, you're not considering me, you're not a nice person. And that used to hook me in substantially in narcissistic abuse, is that I was so triggered by those comments, that shame that was still in my body, that would react to that I would bend over backwards, like so many of us did, to try to even up the ante of proving that I was worthy of the narcissist's approval even more. So when we're hooked in through guilt and shame, we're actually likely to people please even more, to try to alleviate those feelings via another person rather than doing the work on them ourselves, which is what we really need to do. So in all of our people pleasing and how that hooked us into narcissists, a huge awakening needs to be realized, is that the narcissist is not going to morph into a reenactment of the original parenting, which would be about that love and that approval and that security, and that your true self, yourself, is acceptable. The narcissist was never ever going to be that person in our life. The narcissist is a false substitute. The narcissist was the messenger of all of the places of where we haven't become that partnered parenting self to self. And we're certainly not going to be able to go back to the original parents to get them to heal it for us, because, you know, they may not have ever evolved to their own consciousness, and they were also parented in unconscious ways. It was nobody's fault. It was nobody's fault. It's been a whole model of codependency and unconsciousness that this planet has been based on, which has been life from the outside in instead of the inside out. So the only solution in this is to decide to do our own self-partnering and grow these wounded parts of ourselves up to a place where we are self-partnered. We're unwounded enough that we can show up without people pleasing and be able to put our best foot forward and be able to speak up and have our rights without the fear of criticism, rejection, or abandonment or punishment, and have it unconditionally. It doesn't matter if people try to do that to me, because I'm just going to walk away, or I'll get an intervention order if I need to, or I'll do whatever boundary is necessary to honor my rights, because that's how we start training life and other people, just in very clear, direct ways, and they don't even have to be emotionally charged. They can be very clean and clear and empowered. We start changing our lives, but we need to do the development to get there, because it's very hard to do that when we're still carrying those young inner wounds inside us. And we need to understand that people are not going to be great to us because we're being great to them. People are actually going to be great to us because we're great to ourselves. And I don't mean that in an egotistical, arrogant, narcissistic way. I'll give you an example of that. We've all had an experience of somebody in our life that is a people pleaser, that's really sort of nebulous and wishy-washy, and they don't have an opinion and they don't have preferences, and they just sort of go along with everything. And we often find that we're really not inspired to step up for these people. I remember a friend of mine who had this big thing about doing everything herself, and when people were around her, they would even offer help. No. And then, you know, eventually she'd crack it and she'd say, well, people don't do anything for me. And we'd say to her, well, you don't ask and you don't allow, you know, so people aren't inspired to help you and stand up for you or connect, or even really connect to you. You know, you push them away. So there's so many things in this, and there's so many, and I'm going to be looking at a lot of these areas in these other talks in this series. But just to come back to people pleasing, people that people please generally don't have people respect them, and they don't have people value them. In stark contrast to when we meet somebody who is really self-partnered in their body, and they're very clear and they're very direct and they're very calm and they're straight and they look you straight in the eyes and they're very honest and they can speak up for what they need. They can clarify things with you very clearly, and they're not carrying that guilt and that fear, and they're not justifying and they're not excusing, and they're direct with 5 other sentences around asking for what they want. We actually feel very calm and solid and very connected to these people, and very able to be in their life and to want to partner them and to be around them. And you know, as codependents, we really think that if we have opinions and we honor our own emotions, that we're going to get shot down, or people will leave us, or they won't like us. And that's all going back to the little girl or the little boy that felt like that when you were trying to have your own emotions. I promise you. So what's the solution? What's the solution? Well, I always believe that the solution is inside us. I believe that to get out of anything, we have to come inwards. And I want to really share with you an exercise which is one that we do in the webinar groups. And it's a really good exercise, and I want to share it with you too. And what you can do is get out a journal, you've got pad and pen, and sit with yourself quietly and start feeling into, think about it and then feel into it. And that's how you start coming inside yourself. Think about the times in your life where you people pleased. Think about them. And you might want to just write down a few of those times, and then you're going to start being able to put together a pattern. But the pattern is really inside you. And then what I want you to do is to feel into your body. Where do you feel that tension or that tightness or that constriction, that anxiety, when you're handing power over, when you're saying yes when you really mean no, when you're trying to give to get love, approval, security? Feel in your body. Where is it? Where's that feeling, that fearful feeling? Is it in your heart? Is it in your solar plexus? It might be in your throat. Often it can be in your throat with people pleasing, because you're not saying what you really want to say. And then to investigate it on a deeper level, if you close your eyes and you take your attention into that part of yourself, and then ask that part of yourself, how old are you? And if you are really open and with yourself, lovingly, unconditionally, with care, with devotion, not with self-judgment, not with self-rejection, not with self-avoidance, but with real love and care, the way that you would care and love for a little one, a child in your life that you adore. If you can ask yourself the questions with that level of honesty and openness and love, then be really prepared to get an intuitive answer, which might be 2, it might be 4, it might be 7. Just trust. And this is not about logically going through your memory banks to say, well, oh, it must have been 3 because this happened. What is your intuition telling you? What is your body telling you? And then if you take your attention into that part of you, which is the container of a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old, and then you ask that part of yourself again with that love and devotion, what is this really about? What's it really about? And be again open and loving and receptive, and talk to yourself dearly and tenderly. And you'll start getting information. And when you start writing it down, what you are doing is you're making the unconscious conscious. Because what happens is when we have the wounded parts of ourselves, we've divorced from them, and then unconsciously we're trying to seek other people to fix them for us, who are never going to. Those people are actually going to be the people that are going to hit those wounds open for us to heal them. So they're going to bring more of the wounding that we're avoiding. But when we really open up and listen and start journaling and we connect, we start healing the wound. It's like we are, it's like we're getting an abscess. We're bursting an abscess and we're getting it out and we're releasing all of that toxic, painful emotion. We're bringing it from the darkness into the light. This is what making the unconscious conscious is all about. And you're going to start unraveling and healing that part of you. You're going to start, that part of you which feels heard and supported and loved is going to start growing up. And you're going to be the adult in charge. That is self-soothing. That is self-partnering. That is self-loving. So you're going to be so much more likely to not hand power over unconsciously to perpetrators and abusers anymore. You're going to be much more likely to stand in, I can have my emotions, I can speak up, but if you don't get it, so be it. Who cares? I've got a whole world of resources to connect to. It doesn't have to be you. I'm no longer sourcing myself through you. I'm sourcing and generating my life through life itself. That's when we become empowered. But we've got to go inwards and we've got to heal these parts in order to be able to do that. So I really, really hope that this has helped. And the follow-up of this series, we're going to just keep diving deeper and deeper into all of this. And I hope that you relate to it. And also too, please know that if you want to access even more resources to be able to self-partner and to be able to heal out of people-pleasing and feeding narcissist energy, you can do so by connecting to my free resources where you can subscribe on the button that appears on this video. And also too, I would love you to come into one of my 3 keys to thriving after narcissistic abuse teleseminars, where you get to workshop all of this stuff that I've just talked about to work on with hundreds of other people from all over the world. And that will really help you as well if you want to take this journey to a deeper level. So you can do that by clicking on the button that appears on this video. So that's it from me for this episode, and I look forward to the next in the series. So keep smiling and keep healing and keep thriving, because there is nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.